11 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. You are listening to On the Move with myself, Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa. Today in the cubicle, we're speaking about mentorship, which is highly valuable and underutilized. It is very fantastic because what it can do, it can accelerate your professional growth if you find the right mentor, and it can impact you to a point where you also see career advancement. And what a mentor does is not just to lead you practically in ways that you can perform better, but also find the right networks, and also maybe direct you in a path whereby you find great skill development. We're going to be speaking about mentorship today, not from only the perspective of the mentor, but also the mentee. What are the benefits of this thing that we see as a soft skill? Thrishni joins us on the line. That's Thrishni Subramoney, a senior communications specialist at Flow Communications. Thrishni, welcome on the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
You know, the thing about mentors and mentorship, you have to find the right person, but also someone who's willing to go the extra mile while you also are initiating that relationship. It's not easy, right? Finding the right mentor, Thrishni?
Oh, 100%, Benjamin. And I think all of us have some experience looking back at our careers. There were people that guided us along the way. And what's interesting about mentorship that we find is that often the people that are your mentors don't always know that they're playing this role in your life. And often the people that you mentor, you might not realize the role that you're playing. I think one of the key things about mentorship in 2025, though, is to remember that is to look at the bigger picture, because as businesses, when we think about the skills that we need to kind of inculcate and what we need to teach, we often forget there's a culture piece that needs to be met as well. So mentorship plays an incredibly important role for business as much as it does for the people being mentored and the mentors themselves.
All right, let's go a little bit back. What is mentorship?
Oh, that's such a that's such
Because,
a question.
we take it for granted because we tend to think it's just something, but it's actually something completely different.
Yeah, that's true. And it's interesting that people do have different perspectives on this, right? So I've been, my career is now more than 2 decades in the making, and I've been with Flow Communications now for about a decade. And my view of mentorship has changed. When you begin in your career, a mentor is someone that is really teaching you the skills that you didn't learn at tertiary in order to navigate this world of work. So it can be like which buttons to press when you're in a studio, and I'm sure you experienced that as well.
Yeah.
But later on, it is about how do you navigate difficult conversations. So think of your mentor as essentially this person that is your guide, so that you take the fastest route in your career that you possibly can, as opposed to learning the hard way every single time. So I like to think of a mentor as someone that kind of prevents you from having to learn the hard way every single time and make a mistake every single time, because they've been there.
You know, Trishni, as I think we've become more sort of money consumed and, just trying to climb up the ladder, time has become something that has been very essential and everyone is sort of holding on to their time. Is that the reason why we've seen a huge decline in mentorship? Because one would think it would take an enormous amount of time to both be a mentor and a mentee, because you would have to engage in ways outside of the formal work environment.
I think that the point you make is a good one. I think that, however, it's important to think about this issue of time from a different perspective as well. Now, if you consider how long a person stays in a job, every time a business has to replace someone because they were disengaged, they weren't really feeling it, it actually costs the business more. And so if you think about the time that you spend encouraging someone and showing them the ropes and making sure that someone feels comfortable in their space, you actually save a lot. So and I can actually give you an example of this. So the churn when it comes to communications agencies and when it comes to marketing agencies is notorious. People don't stay in roles for more than 3 years. At Flow, we've got more than 40% of the people that work with us have been there for 5 years or more. And in fact, you're moving on to a 5-year club and a 10-year club in the company. And that really speaks to this idea of it is more valuable to ensure that people have their career in your business, because it ensures that you're not constantly having to train new people that come on board, but your team gels in a way that is very, very powerful and impactful for a business. So if we're going to make a money argument, I think it's important to look at that side of that argument as well, because that time is always well spent.
Yeah. And, when you are establishing that relationship of mentor and mentee, what should you be looking out for that's going to be beneficial for you as the mentor, but also as the mentee?
It's quite an important relationship. So it is important to go into it understanding how to frame it in a nice way. I would say that Flow has tried different kind of models of mentorship over the years, having been around for as long as the company has. And what we've ultimately found is that the best way to land those relationships is to try and not make it a formal process. So if you think about that relationship between mentor and mentee, you kind of imagine here's someone that is experienced teaching someone that is less experienced. And that kind of model can be outdated and often not as effective. So what you essentially want to do, and I'm really looking at it from the role of a corporate or a company that's trying to build this in, is create a culture where things like asking questions and asking for direction is encouraged. Admitting when you don't know something or admitting when you've made a mistake. So there's that idea of psychological safety becomes incredibly important. So that mentor-mentee relationship, it's not a transactional kind of one-way thing where it falls on the mentor to ensure that the mentee is able to do everything, and it falls on the mentee to basically be a sponge and take in all of this information about how to really get the most out of their career. You learn across both sides of that relationship. And so it is important to create a culture where that learning is encouraged. So for instance, creating learning spaces. So we have an initiative called Flow School, where every week there is an experienced staff member sharing in a kind of a lesson format things to learn, but also cool. And it helps. It is cool, and everyone enjoys it. It's like an hour of your time on a Wednesday, and you learn something. But on the other side of it is creating spaces where everyone kind of feels equal. So a good example is at Flow, we have groups on our work suite where I, for instance, can drop a message into the CEO's chat or the MD's chat at any time in the day, regardless of which level you are on the company. Even technologically, you've got to think about channels where there is access, because that's what mentorship really is about. It's about having access to someone that knows more than you, regardless of where they are on the so-called food chain when it comes to corporate, because also someone that you regard as a mentee often has valuable lessons to share. And so by flattening that kind of hierarchy and kind of thinking of it as we're all here to learn, but we're also here to teach, we all have things that we can share that others can learn from. You create a sense of safety, which I think is really, really important when young people are entering a workplace, because it can be intimidating. You can be scared to ask a question because you're worried about, God, is someone going to say that was a race? How could she ask such a thing?
Yeah, well, Thrishni, let's go to a break. We'll come back to you. I like that way of doing mentor-mentee relationships, that it seems like it benefits you in both ways, because a younger mentor can actually give you also skills when it comes to the new technological advances that we're seeing. So as an older person, you can co-opt a younger person and say, come, mentor me, help me when it comes to these new technology things that I want to adapt to. And it happens both ways, right? Where the older generation probably networks a little bit better. They know how to structure businesses and create infrastructure there. So we'll continue. I like what you said around those examples. They are fantastic. Let's take a break. We'll be back and continue our In the Cubicle feature.
This August, we celebrate the strength, brilliance, and unstoppable spirit of African women.
It was the women themselves who strove for and got the changes by lobbying, going through NGOs, and by networking.
That's you, ladies. From the boardroom to the classroom, from the marketplace to the microphone, women are leading, innovating, and transforming our continent every day.
Oh, here's to knowing that as a woman, your voice can change the world.
Your voice matters. Your story inspires. Your presence is powerful. This Women's Month, we honor you. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
9 to 12 midday, Central African Time. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
We are in the cubicle, and today we're speaking about mentorship, a skill that seems to be fading in the work environment. But it is the skill that actually may be one of the things that bring forward your business survival, but also an extra way to really build community within an organization. We're still speaking about this with Thrishni Subramoney, Senior Communication Specialist at Flow Communication. Before we went on the break, Ben mentioned, the different ways that we can engage in mentorship within the organization. And you were speaking about, how different mentorship has been looking over the years, because it seems like the original way to do it is if younger people look up to older people in the organizations, not by age, but perhaps also by how many years one has been in that organization. But things are changing, and there's now a term for what Benjamin has mentioned. It's called reverse mentoring, where some younger or juniors within the organization teach or mentor senior people or even leaders within the organization with some of the skills that younger people are better at. Do you think there's an openness to reverse mentoring within organizations, or is it more tricky because seniors always think that they should know more and they should be the mentors instead of the mentees?
It's a really important perspective as well. So there's always this idea of a mentor it's Dumbledore, right? It's your gray-haired, I know I have gray hair, but it's your gray
yeah.
It's your gray-haired kind of older person passing on wisdom of the ages down the line. But what you said is exactly right, Palesa. It's the world has changed, and particularly when it comes to things like technology, but more than that, diverse life experience. It's really important to create an environment and a culture where that knowledge sharing happens in two directions. So I'll give you an example of this. Flow is very technologically led. We're an integrated comms agency, and have won awards across the space. And technology is at the heart of that. And what you will increasingly find is, because of the way generations have evolved and developed, younger staff members and team members are able to pick up the technology piece with almost a natural ease. Whereas, when it comes to older staff members, there's a way of doing things, and now there's a different way of doing things, and I'm learning different ways of doing things. And I think that technology is a great example of how that mentorship kind of conversation really needs to change, because that can go in both ways. Younger people interact with technology and social media in a completely different way, and those insights are incredibly important. But the other piece of having a diverse team with diverse perspectives and backgrounds means that you absolutely want to mine that, particularly if you're in an industry like comms and you're in an industry like marketing. Understanding life experience is incredibly important. And everyone, regardless of how old you are, has life experience.
Yeah.
And should feel free to share it.
Let's speak about cross mentorship as well, because I think the notion of mentorship, one might think that the only person who can mentor me is the person who is in the same line of work as me. But in an organization, there are different departments. Is there space for cross mentorship within departments? Maybe one would want to pivot, and that would create a way for them to pivot within the organization if they wanted to do something different.
I think it's actually crucial that you do that, particularly when you enter an organization. If you're new in an organization, it is quite easy to kind of get stuck in, I was hired as a developer, or I was hired as a designer or a writer, I'm going to stay with my team. But by moving around an organization, you not only get the bigger picture of how an organization operates, so that you understand your space in this big kind of goal that your organization has, but it also helps you learn from different people. So another example of this, and it's an internal comms kind of culture initiative that we have at Flow, is that the entire team of 60 plus people are divided into squads of about 7 people each. And what we do in our squads is, and you make sure that you mix it up so there are people from different departments in each squad. You spend some time talking to each other, but every morning, a different squad hosts a week of staff meetings. And it's a short staff meeting at about 9 o'clock in the morning. And what happens is that the entire team kind of brings their own knowledge to it. Everyone kind of takes a part. Mm-hmm. So you hear from every staff member, but it also allows you to get to know different people on a team, because that can be very hard. You can be in an organization for years and years and meet someone, particularly if it's a big organization, and think, wow, I've never actually sat down and spoken to this person before, and might have things to teach me.
You know, there is that long-term kind of mentorship that we all need, that personalized one-on-one type of mentoring. How crucial is that, where you have that one person who is that reference and someone that you can truly trust with your deep matters?
I think that is also an important kind of relationship to have. I think if you think back on your career as well, Benjamin, there probably are people that were your go-tos when it came to being worried about a particular professional situation or wanting an opportunity and not knowing how to go about and get it. I think finding that mentor is probably a more organic process than people think. Sure. It's not always going to be your direct senior. It's not always going to be people in your team. And that's why this earlier point that Palesa raised about this cross-mentorship and moving around in organizations is really important, because you don't know where that chemistry lands. Yeah. And as this conversation kind of evolves towards sponsorship, which is a kind of mentorship where you open doors for your mentee, it is important to circulate as much as you can.
All right, let's wrap it up. I think we've got the gist of it, and it's being so beneficial because you gave us the multi-dimensional nature of mentoring. Tell us a little bit more about where we can find out more about Flow Communications before we wrap up.
Oh, fantastic. So you can go to flowsa.com, and that's Flow Communications website. You can follow us on Flow Comms. You'll find us on X, on Facebook, as well as on LinkedIn. Definitely connect with us, because, you know, it's always interesting to keep these conversations going. And of course, we love talking about comms and how it's developed as an integrated comms agency. So everything from PR to digital to actually getting your internal comms right are all conversations that we'd love to have with you.
Well, Thrishni, thank you so much for your engagement on this conversation in our cubicle today and speaking about mentorship. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
That's Senior Communications Specialist at Flow Communications, Thrishni Subramoney. And we're speaking about the soft skill of mentorship within organizations. Have you had a mentor? Maybe let us know on our live streams on Facebook as well as on YouTube. We see you there on Facebook. Raidan Dauda, thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the Channel Africa family. For now, it's 10:30 Central Africa time. We're bringing back Musibudi Makura for our latest sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.